Hello and welcome back. This is episode 3 in our Advanced Spoken English series. As you know, these lessons are designed to help you take your English to the next level. The topic of this lesson is social media. You will hear a conversation. It's about 6 minutes long. After the conversation ends, we will go through the script of the conversation and I will teach you useful vocabulary words and expressions. So let's begin.
Let's talk about social media. Do you use social media?
I use YouTube. I use Facebook too, but not as much. I've tried Twitter in the past, but I never got the hang of it. I'm not really big on social media generally, aside from YouTube, which I use a lot, both for watching videos and for publishing my own.
You just mentioned YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Why are these sites called social media?
Well, the key word is social, because these sites are all about people sharing information. I would say that that's the defining feature of social media. And the term social media is used in contrast to traditional media, where the viewer or the listener is only a passive recipient. Information is presented to us and we passively consume it. And if we want to share that, if we see something on television and we want to share that with somebody, we have to either call them up or tell them in person. But on a site like Facebook, if you see something interesting, you can immediately engage with it on the platform itself. You comment on it, like it, share it, and if you share it, that gets pushed out to all of your friends. Obviously, you can't do that with your television or a newspaper. So social media sites are driven by people sharing information.
Why do people use social media?
I think the social element is itself the primary motivation for people, because it's a basic urge for human beings to seek attention from others. And social media takes advantage of that very well. When we share something, say even a selfie, these algorithms are designed to push that out to all of our contacts and generate likes and positive comments. When that happens, we get a temporary boost of self-esteem, but then that fades quickly. So you have to post another selfie or share something else. That keeps us coming back. It's a form of instant gratification. I don't know that that's a good thing, but that's what makes social media so addictive, in my opinion.
It sounds like you're saying social media is a bad thing.
No, not necessarily. There are advantages. For one, it allows us to stay in touch with people in our social circle. We can let people know about the good things that are happening in our lives. In a world where we're so strapped for time that we hardly ever get to meet up with friends or relatives, social media allows us to stay in touch with them. And it's not uncommon to run into old friends on Facebook from way back and reconnect with them. And then look at what YouTube has accomplished. For many people, it has completely replaced the television. And more than that, I think it's just astounding how much learning material is available free of charge on the site. And it's nothing short of revolutionary. You can learn anything you want, on demand, free of cost, watching videos. And of course, I make videos myself, so it helps people like me. I guess the term for that is creators. It helps independent creators connect with their potential audience. That would have been almost impossible before the advent of social media.
Do you think social media is good for children?
No, I don't. And I say that with apologies to my young viewers. I think there's a reason why social media sites have a minimum age requirement to have an account on their site. Because there are inherent risks involved for children in using platforms where they can come into contact with strangers. When we were growing up, our parents used to tell us not to talk to strangers, but that rule is not easy to enforce when your child can be interacting with random people on an electronic device. Beyond that, I think the bigger problem is that children can be exposed to unfiltered material on social media. See, if my child was watching television, as the parent, I would know that the content that they're exposed to is going to be curated to some extent. But on social media, people can say what they want, post what they want, share what they want. And children, including teenagers, often lack the judgment to know that something is inappropriate, that certain types of behavior or language or ways of saying things are not acceptable in society. So I don't think children ought to be using social media, honestly.
Does social media also have negative effects on society as a whole?
See, I don't want to be seen as bashing social media here, but it certainly has negative effects on society that we cannot ignore. One is that it's often a tremendous waste of time. The fact that social media apps are so easily accessible on mobile devices means that whenever people are bored, they can just open up Facebook or YouTube and get their dose of instant gratification, and they don't have to make the effort to socialize with human beings in real life or pick up a book and learn something. And then, like I said before, some of the content that goes viral on social media is just not of the positive kind. A lot of stuff that I see is offensive and obnoxious, or even things that are plainly false. It's really easy to spread false information, fake news via social media. And the lack of accountability, I think, also tends to bring out the worst in people sometimes. But for all its flaws, I believe the advantages that I mentioned before certainly do outweigh the disadvantages. So the important thing is to view social media as something that can add value to our lives and to seek out positive experiences while being wary of the negatives.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, here we are with the script of the conversation that you just heard. Now we're going to go through the script and learn some useful vocabulary, but before we do that, you will find a link in the description to this document. You can download the document from that link. When you do, you will find the complete transcript of the conversation, and if you scroll down, you will see a list of all the vocabulary items that we discuss here, along with their meanings. There are a total of 30 items. All right, let's go back to the top, and let's start discussing the vocabulary. The first item is over here. I said, I've tried Twitter in the past, but I never got the hang of it. To get the hang of something means to learn how to do something or to get used to something. So I'm saying here that I tried Twitter, but I never got used to it. I never got comfortable with it. So I never got the hang of it. And then I'm not really big on social media generally. Not big on is an idiom, and it means that you're not very interested in something. Like if I say, I'm not big on classical music, that means I'm not really interested in classical music. So I'm saying here that I'm not greatly interested, I'm not really into social media. Okay, and then there was a question here. Why are these sites called social media, YouTube and Facebook and so on? And I said, well, the key word is social. The key word means the important word in a phrase or in a term. So in the term social media, I'm saying the important word is social. And that's because these sites are all about people sharing information. The phrase all about, it's a common expression, and it's used to indicate the focus or the most important aspect of something. So social media sites are all about people sharing information, meaning that that is the focus of these websites. I would say that that's the defining feature of social media. Defining feature means the most important feature. That feature which gives something its definition. So the defining feature of social media is people sharing information. And the term social media is used in contrast to, that is in opposition to, traditional media, where the listener or the viewer is only a passive recipient. The word recipient means a person who receives, and passive is the opposite of active. So a passive recipient is a person who sits there and receives information without doing anything actively. And if you think about it, that's how it is when we watch television. We sit there, we get all that information, but we don't actively engage with it. And if you see something on TV and you want to share that with somebody, you have to either call them up or tell them in person. The phrase in person means being physically present, face to face, okay, not via email or not through some other indirect method. Now, on a site like Facebook, however, if you see something interesting, you can immediately like it, share it, and so on, and then that will get pushed out to all of your friends. All your friends will see it, but you can't do that with a TV or with a newspaper. So social media sites are driven by people sharing information. Driven by means operated by. You can think about it as showing the source of power to make something happen. Now, if I say electric cars are driven by electricity, that means the source of electric cars is electricity. So the source of power for social media is when people share things. The next question was, why do people use social media? And I said it's the social element itself, because it's a basic urge for human beings to seek attention from others. An urge is a strong desire, especially a desire that you cannot control. So to seek attention means to act in a way that makes other people notice us. To do that is a basic urge that we all share as human beings, and social media takes advantage of that urge that we have. Because when we share something that might get lots of likes and positive comments, when that happens, we get a temporary boost of self-esteem. Self-esteem means self-respect or self-confidence. So lots of people are liking or sharing your selfie, you feel good about it. That's a temporary boost of self-esteem, but that doesn't last. It fades quickly, so you have to keep sharing things. That keeps us coming back, and that's a form of instant gratification. This is a popular expression that you will see in many contexts. Instant gratification means immediate satisfaction, but it's the kind of satisfaction that you get from, say, eating something sweet or playing video games, because that satisfaction does not last. It goes away quickly, which is why it's not satisfying for a long period of time. So instant means immediate, and gratification means satisfaction. Instant gratification is immediate satisfaction. Okay, the next item is not necessarily. So the interviewer said, it sounds like you're saying social media is a bad thing. I said, no, not necessarily, meaning that's not what I'm saying. This is just a fancy expression that you can use. You can say not necessarily, because there are advantages. For one is an expression that is used to introduce one reason or example. It's like, this is just one reason. And I'm talking here about an advantage. The advantage is it allows us to stay in touch with people in our social circle in a world where we're so strapped for time. Strapped for means short of something or not having enough of something. If I say I'm strapped for cash, that means I don't have enough cash. Or as in this example, I said we're strapped for time, meaning we don't have enough time. We're so strapped for time that we hardly ever means almost never, very rarely. We hardly ever get to meet up with friends or relatives. Social media allows us to stay in touch with them. And it's not uncommon to run into old friends on Facebook. Run into means to meet somebody unexpectedly. So I'm saying that it's common to meet old friends on Facebook from your high school. And that's what this expression means, from way back. From way back means from a long time ago. It's not uncommon to run into old friends on Facebook from way back and reconnect with them. And then I talked about how YouTube has accomplished a great deal for education. I said, I think it's just astounding how much learning material is available free of charge. Astounding means very surprising, and it's often used with victory or success. Somebody could have had an astounding victory or astounding success, and that's what I'm talking about here with reference to YouTube. I think it's astounding how much learning material is available free of charge, and it's nothing short of revolutionary. Nothing short of means almost equal. So I'm saying that what YouTube has done for education is almost equal to a revolution in the field of education. You can learn almost anything you want just watching videos on YouTube. And then I said that I watch videos myself, so it helps independent creators like me, connect with their potential audience, that would have been almost impossible before the advent of social media. The word advent means the time when something begins, and it's commonly used with technology, before the advent of the internet or before the advent of cell phones. So I'm saying here that before social media came into existence, independent creators would have found it difficult to connect with their potential audience. The next question was, do you think social media is good for children? And my answer was, no, I don't think so. And one of the reasons is that there are inherent risks involved for children in using platforms where they can come into contact with strangers. Come into contact with means strangers can contact children, children can contact strangers, and that's unsafe. Okay. Another problem, perhaps the bigger problem, is that children can be exposed to unfiltered material on social media. If your child was watching TV, you would know that somebody would be controlling, what kinds of TV shows or movies were shown on the channel. And that's what the word to curate means. To curate means to select something carefully, okay, for publication. For example, music or movies or TV shows. A person who curates content is called a curator. By the way, a person who manages a museum is also called a curator. Now, on social media, nobody curates the content. People can say or post whatever they want, and children often lack the judgment to know that something is inappropriate. The word judgment, and I should point out that this spelling, Judgment, is American, with an E, that's British spelling. That's used in the United Kingdom. So anyway, children often lack the judgment to know that something is inappropriate. Here, the word judgment refers to the ability to make good decisions. So I'm saying that when children watch or hear things on social media, they don't have the judgment. They don't have the world experience to be able to tell that certain behaviors or certain types of language are not appropriate, that they're not acceptable in society. So that's why I say children often lack the judgment. And that's why I don't think children ought to be using social media. The next question was, what about society as a whole and not just children? Does social media have negative effects on society? And I said, I don't want to be seen as bashing social media here. To bash means to criticize harshly. So I'm saying, I'm not trying to criticize social media harshly and say only bad things about it, but there are negative effects and we cannot ignore them. The fact that we all have cell phones and we have YouTube and Facebook on those cell phones means that people can just open up one of these social media apps and get their dose of instant gratification. Do you remember what instant gratification means? It means immediate satisfaction. To get their dose of means to get something that you need, as if you're just taking medicine. So people can just open up a social media app and browse and get some instant gratification and then move on. So because of that, they don't have to socialize. And that word you will see over here. To socialize means to spend time with other people in a fun way. Hanging out with friends or going and meeting your relatives. People don't have to do that nowadays because of social media apps. They don't have to pick up a book and learn something. And also, there's another disadvantage to social media. A lot of the stuff that goes viral is not positive. Some of it is offensive, some of it is just obnoxious. This word is pronounced obnoxious, and it means very unpleasant. We often talk about obnoxious content or an obnoxious person or a person's obnoxious behavior. In all of these uses, it means unpleasant. So there's a lot of stuff that's obnoxious or even plainly false. Plainly false means just simply false, fake news. It's really easy to spread fake news on social media, and there's a lack of accountability. Accountability means responsibility for one's actions or behavior. So if I'm accountable to my boss, that means I have to answer to my boss. I have to explain my actions to my boss. If I do something wrong, my boss might ask me to explain why I did that. And he or she would be accountable to his or her boss. But on social media, there's no accountability. And that lack of accountability tends to bring out the worst in people sometimes. That means to make people show their worst qualities. Okay, it brings out the worst from inside of people. But for all its flaws, the word flaw means a fault or a weakness or a disadvantage. So what this means is, for all its flaws is a fixed expression, and it means even though something has disadvantages, even though social media has flaws, the advantages certainly outweigh the disadvantages. So we have to view social media as something that can add value to our lives, something that can contribute good things to our lives. But we should also be wary of the negatives. Wary of means being careful or cautious in order to avoid danger. So we have to be wary of the negatives, but we can always enjoy the positives that social media has to offer. All right, that's the end of this lesson. Remember to go and download this document. And I want to encourage you to go and listen to this conversation once again. Rewind the video, go to the beginning. And as you listen, a lot of these words that you just heard will jump out at you. And that's a really good way to reinforce vocabulary. Repetition is the best way to learn vocabulary. All right, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I will see you in another lesson soon. And as always, happy learning.